Are you hungry for RPG conversation? RPGaDay has been serving it up hot since 2014.
Today is August 16th, and it's question number 16, which is a follow on from question number 15. And well, that question today is, what RPG do you enjoy using as is? Now, there's a long history on this channel of talking about the joy and satisfaction of playing raw, rules as written, and how learning the game as the game, trying to separate yourself from your biases, from the assumptions and the patterns that you developed playing the last game, can help get rid of a lot of problems or conceptual barriers when you try a new game. Now, in the last few answers, I've talked about games and mentioned how I prefer to use them as written. So it wouldn't be a surprise or even that very interesting if I were today to say, well, I like to play Ubiquity as is, I like to play Mithras as is, I like to play Star Wars as is, etc., etc. So I'm going to not talk about those, but just know that they're out there and those answers are still very much true. But for today, I'm going to go in a slightly different direction and talk about a game that generates an awful lot of controversy, let's say, in the background. And sharp-eyed viewers are going to see it behind me. They might be looking this way and think about all the many versions of the storyteller system, all trying to address issues and problems that people have had with it, in the which flies in the face of all the people who didn't. And then now people are looking there. And what are those very colorful covers behind me? Well, those are games from Palladium. That's right. A game that I enjoy using as is, with no tweaks, is Palladium Fantasy. Now, I'll put a caveat here. I was not one who got into rifts, and the game lines that included mega damage, such as Robotech and notably Rifts, were not games that I was drawn to, and so this discussion doesn't include them, although I suspect they are included anyway. But Palladium Fantasy is a game where you'll often see online, I love the setting, hated the game mechanics, or had to pair it with something else, or it's too hard to play, or whatever. And I understand those statements. I just don't happen to agree with them. I've played this for a vast amount of time with a wide variety of people and character types through all kinds of different campaign ideas, and have not had to house rule it. We did have a period of time where, for reasons which made sense to us, we switched the name of SDC and Hitpoints. We switched those around so that the name applied to the other concept. SDC was Hitpoints and Hitpoints was SDC. We did that for a while, for reasons which are almost lost in the mists of time. But we didn't need to alter how the game worked. Now, this did mean I had to accept some things about the game which I didn't like. And they might not be what you expect, because I had grown very frustrated with class and level-based systems. And while Palladium Fantasy mitigated some of the problems you experience if you don't like classes, it was very much dependent on its levels. So I was moving, or trying to move, out of playing games that were built around the class and level concept, and spending a lot of time playing a game that was partially built in classes, but definitely built on levels. So it was a gradual transition away from that aspect, but it would make a certain amount of sense to people to say, well, if you don't like levels, just get rid of them. And we could have. but the entire game was built around this very specific framework. Rewriting the whole game to get rid of this one thing that bothered one player seemed a little excessive, especially when we could adapt our play to suit the game more easily, leaving us with more playtime. Now, Palladium, insert game title, they are put together in a way which suits the page count. I'll put it that way, rather than which suits the reader or the learner. Which means you need to read the whole book, and you need to make notes. When we were learning Palladium Fantasy, we were in university, and reading was second nature. Taking notes was second nature. Stuffing small pieces of paper with arcane formulas so we would identify what that bookmark was for was second nature. So when I picked up Palladium Fantasy for the first time, I read it, and then I put bookmarks in it so it would be easy to find where things were. The game system isn't put in one chapter all by itself with references to where it might apply or anything helpful like that. Everything is just almost randomly placed inside. But it's all there. The full system is there. And when you look at it, when you compare the creatures and the character types, what you are seeing is not a system based in some kind of notion of game balance where every choice is equal. Some games will say, hey, you'd like to play a detective. You have this many points to build a detective. And you'd like to play a soldier. You have this many points to build a soldier. And how you spend those points is your choice, but the number of points is the game's choice, and everyone gets the same number of points. That's one kind of game balance. Another kind of game balance is, regardless of what you play, you're going to have the same effect on the game world. Meaning, you have a warrior-type character who, at level 2, is going to be able to generate X amount of damage, and you have a magic-using character who at level 2 is going to be able to create X amount of damage. That's another kind of game balance. Palladium doesn't follow either of those ideas. Palladium is providing you with tools. It's almost like a toolbox in a way, where you can set your world up. And it may be that in your world, it may be that in your play group, you have someone who wants to play a giant and someone who wants to play a pixie, and they want to be in the same group, and the game provides you with statistics so you can do that, and they do not relate to each other. They're organized in a way that you can understand. They all use the same traits, but they're not built from the same pool of points. There's no expectation that the one will be able to create the same kind of effect on the game world as the other. One is a set of stats for a giant, the other is a set of stats for a pixie, and never the twain shall meet. And this is something that needs to be understood before you can understand Palladium Fantasy. Once you understand that if you want to find a rule in a hurry, you better have a bookmark or a good memory. And if you're going to build characters, don't expect them to be built on the same power curves. Then honestly, I think you'll be fine with the game. The game has a lot of cool mechanics that should recommend it. The game has a wide variety of wicked spells, and the default setting, the Palladium world, is an incredible place to go explore and then add in your own material. So playing Palladium Fantasy is such a rich and vibrant experience, and the way that combat works, the way that magic works, the implied society that's going on in the background, the explicitly pointed out tensions which kind of put it in motion in the background, and the fact that it's designed to spark your imagination, not walk you through some kind of meta plot, might be really refreshing for people. So, what is a game that I enjoy using as is? Maybe surprisingly, maybe it's hard to believe for people out there, Palladium Fantasy. And by extension, Heroes Unlimited, Ninjas and Super Spies. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
RPGaDay has 31 essential vitamins and minerals. It's part of any complete breakfast.